Camp Dread. Where do I begin? It was my directorial debut, and you are looking at Nicole Sinaglia right there, who was the star of my 6 Degrees of Hell. Camelback Action Park is actually a real place, which you will see that we shot it all here in a resort in the Poconos. And that's a real local news reporter named George Roberts, who's the anchor of TV 13 News at Blue Ridge Cable. And you'll see all these other, I'll go through my cast members. We have Davey Raffaele, who will go on to star with me in Zombie Killers, also a lead star in my movie The Special. And that is Joe Raffa, a very gifted actor and also filmmaker, director, writer that I'll be raving about later as well too. And Ashley Sumner, she was also in my 6 Degrees of Hell. And we have so many. I'm going to be getting to all these actors coming up. So just bear with me as we do. Camp Dread started out as a slasher, and I wanted it as a tribute to like Sleepaway Camp and such. And I got the idea looking at Sleepaway Camp and The Burning and all of those films, but it's real. I mean, everybody thinks very well Friday the 13th, right? But its real inspiration was Tom Holland's screenplay and Richard Franklin's direction of Psycho 2. That's what really got me into Camp Dread, because I wanted more than just a slasher. I wanted a mystery. When I was shooting 6 Degrees of Hell, Fangoria magazine came to interview me. And they said, "What do you got coming up next?" And I said, "Well, I have this slasher, summer camp slasher kind of thing. Wait up, there's Eric Roberts. I'll be getting into him in a little bit as well, too." Eric was an absolute pleasure to work with, and we have so many great stories of Eric on set. However, when I was asked by Fangoria magazine, "What do you have coming up next?" I said, "Well, I have this summer camp slasher, but I'll only do it if I can get Felissa Rose in it." And the reason why is because of Sleepaway Camp, and I've always wanted to work with her. And I have this great Felissa Rose story, which I can tell while the opening credits get ready to go. And that is when I was 15, I went to see Sleepaway Camp in 1983, and I took a girl with me, and we saw it at this old movie house. The Sherman Theater in downtown Stroudsburg. And I enjoyed it. And of course, if you've seen Sleepaway Camp, which I imagine you have, if you are watching this, you know the ending. And when we were out in the lobby, at the end of the movie, I got out in the lobby and the girl says to me, "Well, what did you think of that?" And I said, "Well," I said, "I thought it was a fun little horror film." And she goes, "I don't know if I can date anybody that thinks that kind of movie was fun." And it was almost like that Seinfeld episode with, "Well, I guess we're broken up." And we went home in separate cars. My mom came to pick me up, and she was supposed to take her home, but she called her mom from a payphone, and off they went. So that's my Felissa Rose story. We shot this scene at a place called Penny's in downtown Kunkletown in Pennsylvania. That's Danielle Harris. Of course, most of you all know her from Halloween. She was an absolute pleasure to work with. And we have her with Eric. And Eric, of course, plays Julian Barrett, who is this kind of broken down horror slasher film director who fell on bad times after a series of great slasher films in the 1980s. The waitress is Susan Moses, who has been in a number of my films, starting with The Field. She played Tara Reid's mother. And Susan's name in this movie is Myrna. And that's a direct reference to Psycho 2 from the one waitress that worked at Statler's Cafe, Statler's Diner in Psycho 2. And working with Danielle here, she plays a sheriff, which is what gravitated her to this movie. She thought, "Wow, I've never really played a sheriff or law enforcement before, and to have a female sheriff, that was great." And that helped bring her to the table for this. And most of all, she just was so easy to work with. Eric on set was a real clown. He liked to joke around a lot, and he did this thing. He had this thing like he would do like a saxophone. He would go, "Brr, brr, brr, brr," and he would constantly with his hands on any surface to do drums. Very easy, laid back kind of guy who was more than happy to sign autographs for any of the extras or anybody of the public watching a shoot to come up and just ask for an autograph. He was just one of the most generous and nice people I've ever worked with as well. That is Tommy Stubinsky, who played Danielle's brother and the deputy in the film. And what I'm really happy about with this scene is bringing these two together, but also laying the groundwork for this, because we really wanted Camp Dread to end up kind of as something else. You kind of think you know where it's going, but then it ends up somewhere else, which is really what the reviews have said. And I mean, it's one of my most popular films, if not my most popular at this point. I mean, Death House is popular and all that, but I'm really also well known for Camp Dread. And Felissa has said that, you know, she really credits Camp Dread for a renewed interest in her career. That meal that Eric has in front of him was this pasta dish that we only had one serving of it. And so he was eating it cold. Like it started out warm and we kept having to put it back and all that stuff. So we shot this at a real summer camp. And, you know, I'm not going to name the camp because I was asked not to name the camp because they're afraid that a horror movie will give it a bad reputation. But these are all real cabins, and our crew, we all stayed here as well. So it was really, for 2.5, 3 weeks, it was really like living in summer camp. So all the actors came and stayed there, except for Eric and Danielle. They stayed at a place called the Chateau at Camelback. This is Brian Gallagher, a solid character actor who's been in a couple of my films, who plays, you know, one of Eric's old actors coming back. He's holding this kind of reunion for his former stars, and they're all coming back to this camp for a reason. And I love Eric's ability to just play casual slimeball. And that's just what made it so easy to work with him, because he was just so like, yeah, I got this idea and I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go with it. And he used to call me boss. And he's like, what do you think, boss? Whatever you say, boss. I'm boss. I want to run this by you. The camp itself did not have these trail cams. We have those all set up for the movie. Now, this is a real news van. It was donated for the shoot by TV13 in Palmerton, PA, and with the help of Kim Bell out there. So when you're making a movie locally, you have your positives and negatives, but the positives almost always outweigh the negatives. And we were just treated so well by TV13. We'll be shooting, we shot there before in 6 Degrees of Hell, and I couldn't have done a lot of this without my co-producer, Connie Roberts, who just lined so much stuff up. Connie, if you're ever trying to shoot a movie in the Poconos, you want to find Connie Roberts, because fittingly with this movie, I've always said, Connie knows where all the bodies are buried. So in this scene, you'll see, I think it's coming up, you'll see my brief cameo in this. I'm a boom guy, I'm a sound guy. And they're watching the videos of you know, previous shoots of these old horror films that Eric used to direct. So like I said, the interesting part about all of this is trying to fashion this as a deeper kind of story than a regular slasher movie. Now here comes that footage, and you'll see here. That was an actress of ours, and there I am holding the boom behind. That's my big Alfred Hitchcock cameo right there. So blink and you'll miss me. But we shot all of this in 17 days, I think Camp Dread was shot. And it was a very ambitious film. Now, this is all shot in downtown Kunkletown. That gas tank right there, the gas pump, that's not real. I mean, we got it out of a junkyard and we brought it there. There are no gas pumps here, but we wanted to make it like they're out in the middle of nowhere, which Kunkletown kind of is. And we bring everybody, to the store. This is Rachel's General Store in downtown Kunkletown. That guy with the beard, the blonde hair guy with the beard, that's my uncle who got me my first movie camera. And as to pay him back, I've always put him in as, kind of like an extra in the background kind of thing, as a way to say thank you for helping me get my film career started when I was in 8th, 9th grade. This scene here is with Montana Marks and Joe Raffa, two of the prettiest people that I've ever known. And she's just for some reason got a problem with this guy. So there's a lot of sexual tension disguised as hatred. And just so you know, this is also one of the drawbacks of shooting locally. While we were shooting this scene, and also while we were shooting at the bar, you see those cars going by in the background. Some of the locals were not very happy that we shot in their town, and they would drive by and honk the horns to ruin the sound, or they would get trucks to come down with their mufflers and they'd gun them as they come by just to ruin the sound. Now there's Susan Moses, who is Myrna. She works over at the bar, and she also works at the grocery store. And she's one of my favorite character actresses to have in here. And there's Davey Raffaele, who will go on to star in the special. He plays Vinny in this, and he's antagonizing Nicole Sinaglia, who plays Adrian and does a fantastic job as well. We, again, had to shoot these scenes quickly, and we had to have, if you notice in the front windshield, we had to have this big sun guard over it. And right here, if you look real close in the windshield, you can see the fabric. We use CGI to erase a lot of that out, but you can still see it, like where Davey's hat is, the red hat. If you look, you can see that fabric, but it kind of just looks like a reflection of trees or branches. All of this sound, by the way, when you're watching this with the sound on, we had to loop. And that means you have to get ADR, which is alternative dialogue recording right here, because every time my actors were talking, some of the locals would drive by and honk their horns and, like I said, gun the sound just to ruin the shot. So we had to get the shot done no matter what. And I had to bring the actors back into the studio then just to basically record all of this dialogue all over again. So yeah, there are positives and negatives in shooting, locally. This is the kids' arrival to the camp, and I say kids, but they were all in their early to mid 20s in this when we were shooting this. And this is where they'll meet Eric. All of this stuff, again, everything is to be recorded. We wanted to take a swipe at, this reality TV, which is, really, what is entertainment? That's the catch. One of the things I love about directing is the ability to find actors and let them loose a little bit to do their thing, because they inhabit these characters. And a lot of the dialogue here, I allowed the actors, I just said, surprise me, do some improv. And Davey really rose to the occasion, as you'll see when Eric shakes his hand. He says, because he asks, where's everybody from? And he says, my mom's vagina. So, and he got a reach around from the TSA, he says right there. So it was great to see them all meet Eric, who was nothing but cordial and professional with everybody. And we had Eric for 5 days on set. And I've been wanting to work with Eric for a long time, even way before, Dark Knight and all that stuff in the Expendables. It's just great to work with him. And the best part is one evening, I was driving Eric back to the hotel, and he ended up putting himself on speakerphone with Christopher Walken, and they were trading recipes as Walken was in the kitchen cooking something, and they were talking about their favorite recipes. And I thought, wow, I'm pretty privy to something here. This is a moment, and I got to savor it. The weather for most of the shoot for making Camp Dread was very cooperative. Not too cold, not too hot kind of thing. And we got really lucky, except we were shooting this in September, and we got an early hurricane that came through that shut us down for almost 2 days. We ended up shooting stuff on the interior and had to loop, do the ADR, like I said, re-record the voices. I also told them when they come to the camp, the kids, to unpack whatever they want to bring. What would they bring to camp? And to surprise me, don't tell me. Now, the t-shirts were all part of the props. That's part of wardrobe. But Davey here will rise to the occasion as well when he unpacks. You'll notice they all have these digital frames that are on their shelves, and that's important as well. The whole concept of surveillance is extremely important. The scripts that they're taking are all the scripts for what they think is going to be this movie that Julian is shooting. Now, Davey unpacked his bag, and look what he brought. Instead of like a hot girl poster or anything, he brought a picture of his mom and his cat. That's Alex Mandel. Again, photos on these frames mean something. That's John Avarice in the photo right there, our composer of the score for this movie. I put that in as an inside joke. There is Nicole Sinaglia going up into her cabin, and Again, we're trying to set up, what's the story with all these people? This is Angel Valeria, and Angel does not have one leg. His real leg is through a hole in the bed, and that's an actual like physical stump. I tried to avoid CGI with a lot of this stuff. I wanted to use practical effects, and we could have easily just put a green sock over his leg and did it that way. But I wanted to create also this cool kind of prosthetic leg, like a Terminator kind of leg as well. Nicole Sinaglia as Adrian, with a picture in her frame. It's of her brother, her dead brother. That'll figure in later, and it obviously upsets her. And Eric is in that mobile news van that I was talking about, donated by TV13. And this is Angel Sanchez, who had a great comic demeanor and a lot of fun to work with. And again, they're all here for a reason, as you're going to find out. And that's part of the plot here. That's Kyle Brennan. And Kyle plays this, kind of nervous Jerry kid who he doesn't want to be there. He's probably coming off of drugs. There's Nomi Gray. What a pleasure to work with her. She really got into this. She plays the super horror fan kind of thing. And she plays the super fan of Felissa Rose, who will be coming up. This scene here, I wanted my DP to replicate the opening push of in Jaws, to replicate that kind of push in dolly shot on this group as they sit there, this vast gigantic cafeteria, and in there are just these kids listening to Eric do his speech where he lays out everything. And this is important for the audience to understand, that at the beginning of this, you think that this is going to be a genuine reality show, that there are cameras all over the place. Everybody's being recorded. They're going to have GoPros, basically, body cams attached to themselves, and they're under constant surveillance all the time. And what I wanted for this to come out was, especially at this scene, is that they're all looking to pit against each other because there's this big cash $1 million prize. And that's what they want. And what will they do to get it? So you think, oh, okay, it's going to be about them all trying to kill each other for this $1 million. But as all of you, if you've watched this film already, you already know that's not even the ending. The $1 million is a MacGuffin. It's not even worth anything. It's not even a major plot point here. Nor is the reality show. Again, another MacGuffin, which is just a red herring. We gave them a tour through the actual place, through the actual camp. And you'll notice that you don't see any staff at this camp. And I was hoping that, audiences would go, well, why aren't they meeting the cook? Why aren't they meeting the security? Why aren't they meeting other, people, other counselors than us? But they're the only ones there, along with Julian. So this was the beach where a number of things will be shot on. This is all part of that camp in the Poconos. And the interesting thing about it is I hate water and I can't swim. And there will be a scene coming up where I had to go out on the dock, and I was absolutely petrified. I don't want to go anywhere near the water. If I fall in, I can't save myself. You're talking to somebody here who got kicked out of Red Cross swimming lessons when I was in 5th grade, I think, for choking the instructor for trying to pull me into the water. So I was not looking forward to the eventual battle scene on the docks. Eric was great in acting as kind of like the head producer, director of this whole thing. The one thing that I love, the phrase that came out of this that a lot of people caught on with, is the concept of last word. Because I just love telling people that if you really just want to win an argument, just say last word, like Eric says back in the cafeteria. Just claim the last word, because I hate the phrase just saying. Just saying is somebody trying to claim the last word. And that's why Eric says it's a passive-aggressive pussy way of trying to get the last word. All of them here were so cooperative. There were hot days, muggy days, mosquito-filled days, lots of mosquitoes at this camp. No one complained. Just the easiest bunch of people to work with. And this scene was shot, you can see the clouds in the background. This scene was shot only the day before the hurricane came in. And we got major flooding to the point that we couldn't even leave the camp for a full day because the amount of water that came up out of the creek and over the bridge was impassable. The old, the bridge is washed out, you'll have to spend the night. And we had this confrontation here. Kyle was one of my leads in 6 Degrees of Hell. And unfortunately, he's going to be the first to exit out of this. He plays a great job as the nervous kind of druggy, ex-addict kind of thing. And he hates horror movies. And of course, when we get to the counselor scene with Felissa Rose, well, then you know why they're all here. The hard part about doing all of this is really replicating that 80s look. And it was because of my director of photography, my DP, Charlie Anderson, who really sat down and he said, well, what do you want this to look like? And I had him watch The Burning, and I had him watch Friday the 13th, and I had him watch, of course, Sleepaway Camp. So you'll notice the way that he lit this scene with, the heavy oranges and the nostalgic kind of sepia almost tone to it that evokes that 80s kind of feel. And that's what I needed Camp Dread to have, was a complete 80s type of feel. These kids, some are likable, some not, but we have some here because, look, when you gather these kind of people together, some definitely are going to die, some are going to get naked, and one might just survive. So that's the best part about this. There are a lot of tips of the hat to, the old genre, 80s kind of slasher, but then I go off in an entirely different direction, which I hope if you're watching this and you've seen the full film, you would agree with me on that. This is Felissa Rose's arrival, and she was so excited to be part of this. And we were going to name her Angela, but I got to tell you, folks, I hate that stuff where people try to, they try to, give tribute to these horror films, and it's not even, subtle in the way that they're throwing names out. Like Myrna from Psycho 2, very few people are going to catch that. But if I name Felissa Angela, you're going to confuse people. Some people are going to think, oh, what is this? A sequel to Sleepaway Camp? Because that actually happened in a review. Somebody gave this movie a stellar review, but then killed it all by saying, I think it's the best of all the Sleepaway Camp sequels. It's like, no, it's not a Sleepaway Camp sequel at all. So your glowing praise for this movie means absolutely nothing to me now. I'll go back to Felissa in a moment and why she was so glad to do this. This is also shot at the camp, and this is where we use our first big practical effect. And this arrow was shot by a professional archer, you will see. And it's me for the close-up. Like, you'll see the prosthetic head get hit from the wide shot. And then you will see a close-up of the eye as the arrow penetrates. That was me slamming my palm against the back of, it's like a gun cleaner where you have like a plastic handle, and we broke an arrow and put the metal tip over top, and there you go. And that's everything. Go slow that down, and if you break it down, you'll see what I'm talking about. And we want a lot of blood, a lot of gore right there. An eyeball popped out as Jerry dies. Now, this was not shot at the camp. We found another apartment at a friend's house, and the woodwork and everything resembles very much the woodwork at the camp. So you would think this is Julian's cabin at the camp, but it was really about 30 miles away. That's my personal laptop, by the way, though. So Julian's working on my ThinkPad there. Felissa, to get back to her, she had been wanting to do something like this for a long time. And she had been working at conventions for so long as Angela Baker, riding off that character, that she was looking for a change and something new. And the best part about all of this is she's great. Like, this is more than her just acting crazy. She doesn't act crazy. She's perfectly sane in this. And especially when she finally meets with the kids, I just love the way she interacts with the kids. She is stellar. She has such compassion. Her voice is great. And that's what I also love about Felissa's acting, is that her voice modulates. She changes. She goes up and down, and she whispers. She can go from a "I don't know" to a "what are you talking about" kind of thing. And that is what makes her so great to watch and listen to. Because if you just are going to judge her as a serial killer, it doesn't really all work that way. And so this scene right here with the three of them, it just really panned out well. And I was really, really happy with all of this. Brian Gallagher gives, again, like I said, a really solid performance here. He was an actor in the previous Julian movies, in Eric's director's movies. But however, he's disillusioned. He didn't have a good time. He feels that Eric was sloppy, cut corners with safety, and he's doing it again. And he really is objecting to the mental state of these kids and messing with them with this kind of thing. He just sees nothing but exploitation. So he's up against both Eric and Felissa here. And Felissa really thinks she's going to do some good. Her character, Rachel, thinks, because she did go on to become a counselor because her movie career fizzled out. So she went back, got her degree, became this counselor. And she really thinks she's here to do some good. But it's John, Brian's character, who pretty much figures it all out and sees it for what it is. Again, this is all on the camp. This is the main cabin on the camp. This is the counselor's cabin, which Julian occupies. And of course, where they'll have their final confrontation here. Inside, when you get to look again at some of the poster work, Julian has former posters on his wall. If you look, that one poster is called Summer Camp, and that's the name of the franchise in this movie, the Summer Camp slasher movies. That poster was done by Mark Casabucchi, an artist of mine who also did the artwork for 6 Degrees of Hell. And if you try to read that billing block on the poster, there are a lot of inside jokes there. This was Felissa's first dramatic moment where she got to show off some of her chops. And then she'll have that coming up with the kids. And that's going to be really great. Here it is. So she has the files on all these kids. And, the best part is trying to get these kids to act kind of dickish and uninterested. It's really cool because they're not that way at all. They're some of the friendliest, nicest people you're ever going to want to meet. And for them to act like this, it was some hard work, but that's why they're actors. In this scene here, it gives us a chance to meet each of these kids and then most of all, find out why they are here. And that is the real big focus and no red herring in this movie. Because when you start finding out why they're here, they start becoming actually sympathetic. And that's what I wanted. The number one problem with a lot of these slashers, almost all of them, is you just don't care about the kids. You don't care about the actors, and you're really not supposed to. They're there to be hacked and sliced and diced and to get naked and screw. That's their jobs. That's what they sign up for, these actors do. But I wanted to give these kids more depth. They all have a background here. And when you start understanding them, you start to like them. And that's why at the end of the film, and I'll circle back to this by the end, one distributor came to me and they made a great offer on this film, but they wanted the ending scene with the videos that go back to the opening videos where you see their interviews. Well, we go to those at the end, and you actually develop a real sympathy for these kids. And they said, we don't want that. We don't want people being sympathetic toward the kids. I said, but that makes them human. And I said, you can't cut that because otherwise they're just victims. And I don't want that. And so I turned down that distribution offer to go with Image and RLJ because I just thought that you're really taking away something really important. And as a director, I don't want to sound like a diva, but that's what I wrote that I really felt was important for the audience to get, that these are real people and they died for the sake of entertainment. And we're really not moving far from that now. I mean, look at what we watch for our entertainment. I mean, it's like back to the days of the Roman gladiators, with the bread and circuses kind of thing. And I find that all just pretty much a shame. I'm very proud of this scene because it really allows Felissa Rose to show some of her acting chops. And the hard part about all of filmmaking on this level is that we're shooting in 17 days. And we used a real camp, and that really lends a lot of authenticity. But the hard part is trying to also reference a lot of the tropes from slasher movies. And I didn't want to just repeat a slasher movie. I wanted to give these kids some depth. And one thing that I've discovered in my years, especially through education and then in filmmaking and as a person in general, and running a movie theater for 8 years is often when you have screwed up kids, it's really the parents that are the problem. And this scene, I think, really underscores this, what I'm trying to say here, that it's these kids are here. I mean, think about what she has just said to them and read off their quote unquote offenses. Just what are they here for? There's just really not enough here to send them away. That, I mean, they've all really provided some kind of embarrassment to their families. I mean, you have the one girl, Sarah, who's there because she was outed as a lesbian, and that has embarrassed her parents. All of them in one way, shape, or form have offended or upset their parents. Now, Nicole Sinaglia's Adrian might be the gadfly in the whole group. It's obvious that there are issues here. And if you've seen the film, which I assume you're watching on this commentary, you've already watched the film and you know the ending. And that is, Adrian might just be lying the entire time. So now, this scene here is Myrna, the waitress next door at the bar and also the general store innkeep kind of thing, is saying goodbye to John, who's leaving town because he had a falling out with Eric Roberts as Julian. And this scene originally called for that she put a nest of brown recluse spiders into his lunch bag. And he's supposed to reach in the bag. In the original script, he reaches into the bag and he gets bit by all these spiders and the poison reacts with him and he swells up and he looks bad and all that stuff. And we were originally ready to shoot it this way. And there are stills of him in spider bite makeup. However, the effects people came to set with the idea that we weren't going to do CGI spiders. We wanted to do some kind of practical effect. I love practical makeup effects. So in this scene where he's driving, he's going to get his sandwich, reaches into the bag, and then these spiders all bite him. He removes the hand from the bag, and his hand is covered in spiders. Well, the effects people brought cockroaches, and their plan was to glue plastic spiders onto the backs of the cockroaches, and they were going to crawl, giving the effect that spiders were moving all over his hand. Now, never mind that the spider legs aren't moving and you clearly see the cockroaches under the I mean, I looked at this and I was like, no fucking way. This is going to be horrible. So we lost a lot of time because I walked over with the DP and I just said, we got to kill him another way. We can't kill him with the spiders. And so we had it that Myrna poisoned his sandwich. And I looked up a couple poisons that would cause this kind of reaction that attack the nervous and respiratory system. And that's what kills John. He had to die this way because there was just no way that these very fake looking plastic spiders were going to come across as anywhere near real. And we thought for a moment of CGI spiders, but to track the hand and rotoscope the hand and make realistic spiders, it just wasn't going to happen. So that's the kind of filmmaking attitude that you have to have on a 17-day shoot. Now, I used to have a phrase on set, and I use Jaws as the reference since this movie was my directing debut. And that is, we never want a 3-barrel day from Jaws. Because if you get 3 barrels in the shark comes up, and then it jumps on the boat and it eats you. So at the end of the day, it became a running gag. Hey, Harrison, how many barrels for today? And most of the time we got through on 1 or 2 barrel days. But there were a couple 3-barrel days where they involved, and I'll get to them when we get to those scenes. I'll talk about the 3-barrel days. I'll point them out. But they almost invariably always focused around the effects. Fortunately, I had a good support B unit team for special effects that came in with the practicals and really helped out. Another thing I haven't given enough shout out to is Charlie Anderson's cinematography. We did not want the film to look like some cheap, low budget, grainy, shitty horror film. I wanted a really nice widescreen, colorful look. All the props that you see here are real. These are makeshift slingshots. And we got the idea from that viral video from, I think it was The Biggest Loser, where the girl went to launch a cantaloupe or a watermelon and it flew back in her face and hit her in the head. We wanted to do something like that. And we established this because, again, if you've seen the film and you know the ending, this slingshot thing is going to come in very important. The best part, too, was the improv of all the kids. And again, I say kids, but they're in their 20s. And how they fed off of each other. Working on this was very much like summer camp. And watching Felissa do her job, she really was a great summer camp counselor because she brings out this great empathy. Now, this campfire scene around the beach has a great story to it. While they're talking, and we'll get into some of the stuff that they're talking about here, it's when the kids have gathered to discuss the rules of this reality show and what they have to abide by and who wins and who gets the $1 million, which again means nothing. We were fighting an incoming rolling thunderstorm that was on its way. And crew and staff were on their phones literally tracking this storm coming at us minute by minute. And we ran this down. We had to speed this up to get this shot. And we made it by, I'm not kidding you, it was just starting to rain by the end of this scene. And if you look real close in some of the, especially the tighter shots, you can start seeing the fine rain coming down. It didn't start that way, but it ended that way. But we had to keep shooting to get the scene done because nighttime shots are legendary for being a pain in the ass to light. And so we didn't have a lot of nighttime shots in this movie for these large group scenes. So Davies, Vinny, is the one who's really explaining all the rules to everybody. And, Joe Raffa's Novak is the one that's kind of the spoiler and the arrogant dick and the stud and the one that's really trying to upset the balance because a lot of them, their instinct is we should work together. We should team up, make alliances. But Raffa's Novak is the one saying, you realize there's only one winner. Only one of us can walk away with this. And if it's going to be anyone, why the hell not me? And I love the back and forth that Raffa has also with Montana Marks in this. But here with Angel Valerio, it's great because they drop a big hint. There are hints to all the killings when, he says, what are you going to do? Beat me with your fake leg? Well, we know what happens. And this scene here with Nomi Gray, in a lot of test screenings, it got a lot of like yikes and ooh, the way she talks about this, about what she would do to Novak, about sticking a glass rod into his penis and then snapping it so then he comes blood. And I got that idea, believe it or not, from a real Nazi torture in World War II, a famous Nazi secret agent, military guy, used that as a form of torture by torturing males by sticking a thin glass rod up their urethra and threatening to snap it, and often did snap it off, which would slice the inside of their penis all to ribbons. And so I borrowed that for Camp Dread when she talks about it. We never see that scene, and we thought of shooting it, but we knew we'd never get the film released with that. We'd have to cut it all around. You might as well not even bother. I actually went as far as to ask the effects people if they could make a prosthetic penis to insert the glass rod into, but I just figured we're going to end up cutting that anyway, so why waste the time on the shoot for that? And that's the other thing I've talked about in my other commentaries, especially on the special, that even in horror, there are still some things that are taboo. Now, if these kids were younger, like we're talking in their early teens, like 13, 14, you'd never be able to get this movie released because of the taboo of killing younger children. Once they start hitting 18, you can do like a Scream thing and just disembowel people and crush them in rising garage doors, and there are no problems with that. So here is where Adrian gives her little soliloquy. And the question really is anything she says true? Who is she really? We get a good feel for the other ones, and I believe they're all genuine. Even their profiles that Felissa read in that group meeting, I think they're all genuine. But who is she? She talks about this story of her brother, and she talks about how she was raped and she was sent to this mental home and she's not going back. And it stops everything in its tracks. Yet, we don't even know if it's true, because at the end, if you remember, her hair comes down, she takes the glasses off, and she has an entirely different personality. So did anything she say really ring of the truth? That's what's so cool. This might be one of my favorite scenes out of the film because I got to let them be them. And as a director, I'm very much an actor's director, and I really like letting an actor bring something to the table. Hitchcock believed in a lot of ways that actors were cattle, that you just kind of run them down the chute, you move them to their marks, and they say what's on the script and they do not vary. That full moon shot, by the way, is from 6 Degrees of Hell, my previous film, because we we didn't have a full moon while we were shooting. There were clouds and we never got a good shot of a full moon, so we borrowed that footage from the previous film. Here we have your obligatory tits and ass scene. We have our panties and hot girls, and what I wanted to start building up, what the audience is hoping is going to be a bomb chicka wow kind of a lesbian makeout scene. And I didn't deliver. And I did that deliberately, just to break some of those tropes. So we have Sarah who comes in, which she will tell her story about being made to go to a conversion camp for homosexuality, and they're all asking, how did you get here? And why are you here? And so we had to show off our hot bodies. That's part of what a slasher is. And if you didn't do it, you're going to get people calling you out. But what I do enjoy about this scene is that there is a sensitivity. Ashley Sumner really delivers in subtlety. She, in working with a lot of my actresses over the years, she's someone that I really hope I get to work with again. I don't think she's doing a lot of acting anymore. The last I had heard, she's in California. I worked with her one more time on Zombie Killers, where she played Kennedy in Zombie Killers, and she was terrific. Now, for the ladies, we also give eye candy. We give Joe Raffa working out in some tighty whities, some Calvin Kleins, and some bare-chested guys. Turnabout is fair play. And so we work on that to make sure we're equal opportunity sexist. So that's how it works. And then here we just do a lot of this. They're skulking around. Nomi Gray looking in. Who knows what she's watching? Again, you don't know what's coming or who the killer is. And I love this where Davey just adds that he went to bed with what looks like a spent tissue in his hands down his pants after masturbating to probably was a picture of his cat. And here there's a knock at Novak's door, again setting you up as an audience to wonder just what's going on here. Is that Nomi Gray's character? Is she coming to the door to talk to him? Are alliances secretly forming? And will anybody really resort to murder? We're back here to the slingshot scene, showing how this works. It's going to be extremely important. And the music that is being played here is done by my buddy, Brent Lewis. He and his buddy put together these montage moments here, the music for this montage. Rosalita, I believe, is the song. And I just wanted to show these kids normal. You have to give a moment of levity in a horror film. Every good horror film has humor. And so I wanted to show this. They are just kids being kids. Vinny is obviously the class clown. And you have the takes it too seriously Jock and Novak. And Julian is just watching it all, recording it all. Remember, there are cameras everywhere. And Novak obviously wants Montana's character. And we just set this all up again to show these kids being kids. Gratuitous ass shots, Montana showing off her ass, and giving the audience what it wants. And then, of course, you have Davies Vinny being the quintessential goof. All of this stuff is real. The props are all real. The camp had these paddle boats, and we just had a good time. This was just a moment where I can say, roll the camera and just be each other. Here we go. We tantalize again with the obligatory homosexual lesbian scene here where the girls are rubbing oil on each other and the guys are just, of course, being guys. All of this is a very conscious directorial decision just to give you what is expected. But it's a moment of levity in this film because as I do the fade out, I chose that fade out is to show that that day is ended and now things get dark. From here on out, there's really not much more levity. So we did a scene here very much like a Biggest Loser challenge or Survivor or any of those crappy reality shows where they have to compete against each other for team building and esteem building and that kind of upward bound kind of feel here. So this was the part where I had to go out on the dock and I hate the water. And for the record, I was kicked out of Red Cross swimming lessons when I was 5 years old because the instructor tried to grab me by my waist at one of the last raised pools, above ground public pools in the nation in Bangor Park, Pennsylvania. And I was so scared, I reached out and I sunk my fingers into the instructor's neck. And I choked her so hard, I bruised her neck. They kicked me out. They refunded my mother, I think it was her $25, and told her never to bring me back. So I had to come out on this dock to watch this fight. And I wanted to make sure that it was real. And we have really the two protagonists here. These are the two that are going to square off because she's really the female version of him. And he has no idea who he's messing with, because I also wanted to subvert the final girl trope. And that is the virgin, the nice girl who lives at the end. And then the monster either comes up out of the water after again or whatever. So we have this battle, and it's a pontoon battle with these inflatable pontoons, and it's supposed to be a fun thing, but it obviously is angry. And I wanted a Jason Voorhees moment here. So when Novak, this is very much a Friday the 13th tribute. Novak comes up like Jason, grabs her, takes her in. And then we have an underwater shot, a GoPro shot, where she will grab his balls to get him to let her go. But here he's really going to try to kill her. And that's when she'll grab him to get away. But he's playing for keeps. And that's what I mean. Now the movie has taken a totally dark turn. And Felissa's character, Rachel, is truly out of her depth. I mean, look at the fear on Felissa's face, man. She's really buying into this. That's what I love about her. She's giving it everything she has. This scene here just allows her to lecture him. And again, Charlie Anderson's lighting. If you watch this scene, I wanted, again, that nostalgic sepia tone feel. And Novak just has this face because I knew a kid like this. I knew a kid like Novak. And that is that sociopathic, calm, cool, I know the rules, I know what I'm going up against, and I'm going to subvert those rules. Just so you know, I'm not here to do anything but win. And that is the deadliest type of person in these kind of movies. He's here to win at all costs because he's not going to some rehab. That's what he said before. I'm not going to a rehab. I'm not doing anything like that. But the way that Felissa works here, a lot of this also was improv. I asked her, they got the basic lines in the script, but I said, I want you to give a really honest portrayal. So do a lot of freestyle back and forth here. Whatever he says, you react. And that's why you see a lot of frustration in her face, because she really feels like she's working with somebody that she just can't deal with, because Felissa is a mother. At this time, well, she had 3 children, and they were relatively young, but they were getting older, and she's getting to that point. Now her 2 of her kids are teenagers, and her other is about to be a preteen. So she's dealing with a lot there, and I think she's channeling that, and it's really great. If you look at that poster between them on the wall, there are a lot of hidden jokes, inside jokes and Easter eggs on that poster. So if you're watching this on a big screen, just try to read the credits. There's a lot of stuff in there, and it's a lot of fun to look at. The poster was designed again by a special effects artist and fantastic graphic artist, Monster Mark Kosobucky. If you're on Twitter, find him. You need graphic design done. You need a movie poster designed. Monster Mark is the guy. So there's my plug for Monster Mark. The best part about working with Eric Roberts also was just how easy and laid back he was. He got the lines and he just kind of ran with it and made them his own. And this scene here, we show that there is a moment where maybe Montana's character is actually maybe not so bad. And she's jogging with Angel here, where he gives more of his story. Okay. And we find that deep down inside, these kids just aren't that bad. But it's also going to be a major practical effects moment here. Now he's jogging with his fake leg, which was really just a prosthetic kind of piece that clamped on his shin and the back of his calf. And then it's strapped together. We wanted to give like a Terminator look because we figured he was once a big athlete and he just didn't want like that spring-loaded kind of metal rod. So he had one specifically designed, and it also eased up on us with CGI. So his death here is particularly gruesome, and I just want to go over some of the practical effects stuff for those of you who like this kind of thing. There is no CGI in this upcoming effect. And you'll notice the killer pushes him down with the gloves, and we kill him at a moment when he actually gets a little bit of happiness. That's the tragedy of Camp Dread. They're truly not bad kids. In the Friday the 13th movies, they're all really a bunch of horny dicks that really, we don't care if they live or die. But we like this guy. So he goes down. And as Rafa had said earlier, Novak had said, what are you going to do? Beat me with your own leg? This is a prosthetic here that was attached to the front of his shin to show his broken shin bone poking out through the skin. That's the real stump. His leg was in a hole in the ground, and we attached the stump. And then he's beaten with his own prosthetic leg. And you'll see here when we get the close-ups of his skull splitting open, it was a fake head, and we filled it with like wet sponge, macaroni and cheese, and shrimp. Big jumbo shrimp look really great as brain tissue. If you look, pause that, go back and look. So then we got a cool scene coming up here. You have to have your obligatory hookup and sex scene, your fuck scene. And these two are finally going to do it. However, we hint very strongly, obviously, that Novak is kind of a Minuteman and not a long-term hauler when it comes to sex. But I have a funny story about the sex scene coming up here. And I don't think Joe would mind, but he wanted to make sure that he looked absolutely perfect. So it's not just the women that want to look great. Joe wanted to make sure that his ass was shaved as well, too, that no wayward hairs on his ass were showing on the camera, because he knew we were going to get a close-up of his ass. Also, this is not Montana Marx's breasts. That's her underwear, her panties, but those are not her breasts. We had a separate girl come in. We had stunt breasts for this scene. Montana had a non-nudity waiver in her contract, so we brought in an actress who was wonderful to kind of stand in for her breasts. And the way that the editing goes, Joe Raffa edited this. It's seamless. You'd never know. It looks just like, I mean, the body style, everything, you believe this is her. That's how well the editing and also the model who played her, her chest area worked out so well. So couldn't be more pleased about that. But here's the other thing. Joe ends up coming way too soon, as if you remember seeing the film. And the special effects girls had to create semen. He comes on Montana's belly. And at first, when they came into the scene, they had a splotch on her belly that, I'm not kidding you, folks, it looked like it covered almost her entire belly and chest area. And I'm like, who did that? King Kong? Like, my hat's off. Like, I applaud him. Like, to the guy who can do this, bravo. I mean, it was huge, this kind of cum stain that was on her. So they had to scale that back. So we actually had to do 3 takes of semen lying on skin. And the girls jokingly called themselves the Semen Wranglers. So when you see the shot coming up here, it's like, here he goes, and he does his thing, and then you'll see it. And she mocks him for it because, you know, he didn't please her at all. You can see the look on her face like, ugh, this fucking guy. But you'll take a look here. There it is. It's in her belly button. I'm telling you, it was 5 times the size of that. But looks pretty real there. And then she slaps him with his own cum. I thought that was a really great touch. That was a Montana improv. And I loved it. She slapped him with his own semen. And we see here again the psychopathic ability of Novak. But the fact that Montana, she's egging it all on. It's almost like she likes it. Like she seems amused by all of this. We did shoot some extra footage of her going into the bathroom and washing it off and looking disgusted with herself. But it just dragged a little bit for running time, so we cut it. So we just have it right here that she put a robe on. And I love this line that Sarah says, smells like sex in here. And it's just great. Again, a little bit of humor, but things have now gone absolutely, totally dark. There's the "it smells like sex in here" line. This lighting is perfect. Again, Charlie Anderson's photography showing the shift in the lighting going from those very nostalgic autumn golds to this now, which is a kind of like desaturated look and more of a horror movie look now. And I love these wide angles. I'm a big fan of wide shots to give the audience the scope of the movie instead of always going in tight, going in tight, going in tight. Horror movies will do that a lot, especially in action, to kind of cheat the action. I just wanted one scene. There Adrian comes in, she doesn't associate with anybody, and she leaves. So we have Felissa making the rounds in these real cabins, going to check on people. This was supposed to be Angel's cabin. He never came back. He was supposed to leave. She misses him. The flag that she's putting up, some people have asked, that was explained earlier in the film, that when a contestant is booted off the show, they get a flag on their door. Again, remember, you're supposed to be watching the making of a reality show. And that's all bullshit. It has nothing to do with anything with the plot. The funny part is that the central plot of Camp Dread is really a red herring and what Alfred Hitchcock called a MacGuffin. Again, inside, that's real, by the way, real graffiti, real insides of these cabins. We can't be more grateful for the people that let us shoot at this real life summer camp. And that's what I mean. Like, that's great set design right there. It would have taken a day to get that all filled out by just sending artists in to do, graffiti. And it never still does look right. You ever notice that? Like, even in horror movies, when children do like sidewalk chalk drawings or paintings, you can always tell it's an adult who did it trying to draw or paint like a child. That was another full moon scene, by the way, from 6 Degrees of Hell. And so now we have this where Felissa realizes that something is wrong. She breaks into Julian's cabin and she uses my laptop. And I created all the graphics that you're about to see right here that were CGI'd into the screen. Again, there's the artwork from Mark Casabucchi. And all of this was done to kind of show you that she's finally figuring out. And by the way, behind her, those are storyboards we had done for Camp Dread. So we're actually using them. But behind her, if you look, is a 6 Degrees of Hell poster on the wall, is another inside joke. But all those storyboards, you can see right there, the arrow going through Kyle's skull. These were all done for the actual movie. And so she's seeing that the killer and that Julian is behind this and then has records of all these kids, has all their private records, but he's fleshed them out as characters for this possible reality movie. So now the pieces are coming together, and it looks like that the standouts are Novak and Adrian. So now Rachel has information that she really should not have, and Julian is coming home, and she's got to get the hell out of that cabin before Julian comes in. So everything's got to shut down. She's got to put the laptop back correctly, and I love that she straightens it. I left that. I said, mess it up and make the audience think, oh my God, she left it that way. But she comes back and she straightens it. So then she will, of course, have to confront Julian coming up. Again, this is Nomi Gray, who plays our goth girl. And you can see someone's passing on information for her to use. And this was inspired in real life from a reality show that I was on called American Candidate for Showtime, in which I was asked in the interview process, would I use negative information, real life negative information? Like, what if I found out one of my fellow contestants was an alcoholic? Would I use that on the show? And I replied, no. I'm not going on some stupid reality show to expose someone to their family and friends as an alcoholic and ruin their lives. So I wanted that. Like, she gets this kind of information. Will she use it? We're going to find out. Again, look at the graffiti in the back. We had to have a couple of those, someone's at the door moments, and we know that it's nobody with a hockey mask or anything like that because that's not this kind of film. However, we do build it up here. And of course, I love how Eric enters. Listen to what he says when he enters. He's like, hey, instead of boo and the usual jump scare, we get Eric Roberts coming through your door going, hey, and that very flippant kind of thing. There he is. I love Eric's hair. I can't say that enough either. I'm always in awe of Eric's hair and just watching him perform. He was the jokester on our set. And he was only on set with us for 5 days. So we had a lot of work to do. By the way, we're shooting this scene during the hurricane. And it was raining like hell. So we had to dub all the voices back over top. We had to ADR all the voices. And so we did a really good job with it. I'm very happy with the ADR here. And that's a testament to my sound designer, John Avarice, who also did the score for this. But with this scene here with Eric coming in, reminds me of, like I said, of what a joker that he was. We had a game that the crew would play, and that is taking a clothespin with long neon tape to it, and you would stick it to the shirt tail of somebody on set, the bottom of a shirt, and see it to their back like it's, on their ass kind of thing, and see how long somebody will go, if they can go all day without noticing that they have this clothesline clip, laundry clip on the back of their shirt. And Eric loved that game. Anytime that he could, he would approach the crew and be like, give me a clip and some tape. And he would try to get people. And he tried to get Danielle Harris and Felissa and all of us. And he was always telling great stories. The crew, when we would have a break, the crew would always ask him about the movies that he made and what was it like working with this one. And also, he was the one who brought up about his sister, Julia Roberts. So you got a lot of great information and stories. I don't think a lot of them were meant for the public, so I can't really tell them here. I know some of you are going, oh, come on. But I am respecting Eric's confidentiality and privacy. I mean, I guess nothing is really stopping anyone on set from going out and publishing those stories. But he did say to me, which I can share, when they said, who was the person you liked the least working with in your film career? And he said, Christian Bale in The Dark Knight. And he said that scene when when Batman drops him off the thing and he lands and he goes to speak and he sounds like he's choking, he said Bale actually thrusted his thumbs into his windpipe just to make him speak badly. And he said he did not enjoy working with Christian Bale. So there's a quick story. Nothing slanderous or anything, but he just didn't enjoy working with Christian Bale. So for you Christian Bale fans, I'm sorry. We shot this at night. This is great. Obviously, we shot this at night. All a practical set. Those are the real floating docks. And this is where Nomi meets her end. And of course, her laptop will go in the water as well. She's discovered information that she should not have. And I love this scene here of this practical effect. Her lip ring gets caught on a screw in the dock and rips her lip out. Very proud of that. It's one of those yeesh kind of effects. Again, all practical, no CGI. And that laptop goes to the bottom of the pond. And as far as I know, it's still there. But I love that she's defiant right till the end. Now, can you guess who the killer is right here? You probably can. But it doesn't mean they're the only killer. And again, it doesn't matter who the killer is because there is no $1 million for a prize. There is no reality show. Oh, and that swan. We used to yell, cue the swan. I'm telling you, that swan, every time we were shooting out on the pond, that swan, you'd never see him. And the moment that you yelled action, that son of a bitchin' swan would just like launch and start floating out across the pond. So it became an inside joke of cue the swan. All right, launch the swan, that kind of thing. We got to feed the swan. The swan was very nice. I forget his name, but really nice guy. That's what we liked the swan. Also, the camp was underneath what must have been some type of like network or highway for jets and airplanes. I'm not kidding you. For sound, it was a nightmare. Every time you seemed to yell action, hold for sound, hold for jet, hold for plane, because for those of you who don't know, the sound needs to be pristine. It needs to be quiet. Otherwise, you have to dub everything, and that can become a nightmare and expensive. So when a plane flies overhead in the middle of a scene, you have to cut because the microphones pick that right up. And you can't have a scene where somebody's talking no plane and someone's answering them with a plane. You get that nothing, nothing, you can't have it, or a jet. So we really struggled with aircraft on Camp Dread. Now this here is where they discover, and this is a real one, they discover a cell phone jammer at the top of one of the buildings. All the buildings have them to prevent them from being able to call out to the outside world. This was a real cell phone jammer that I had. I owned one. Sometimes when I travel into New York and such, and I'm on a train or I'm on a bus and people are talking way too loud and being obnoxious on their phone, I just turn that on and suddenly all cell service on the phone just drops. Now, I know you're saying, oh, well, wait a minute, you can't do that. You can't do that. What if somebody had an emergency? I get it. I would do it to disrupt, and I turn the cell phone jammer off and power comes back. The cell service comes back. But as you can see, they turned it on and now everything is done. Cell service died, but then they're finding that their services have been canceled. Their parents are paying for their cell service and their account has been suspended. So what's going on with that? And then we have a great scene here. This is Angel, and he's getting ready, doing his cooking thing when he hears these sounds. And we talked about this, that they have to resurrect the kitchen and that they have a walk-in freezer. And the freezer opens both ways. It's a two-way walk-in freezer. And that was important. That was a clue that was dropped in the beginning of the film when they were getting their tour by Julian, by Eric Roberts. So this was a real freezer. It didn't work. It was not really cold in there, but we had to make it look cold. So all the ice and the frost that you see, by the way, right there, that's just a smoke machine, a fog machine, giving the look of fog. When he comes in, you think this is all like wrapped meat and stuff like that. But when he uncovers the one body, all of that is fake frost. It's a styrofoam kind of thing that was sprayed on with glue. And they just kind of like sprayed it on the actor to give it a natural feel, like it settled naturally. And I'm pretty proud of it. It looks pretty good. I mean, you get the feeling that the guy's really in a freezer. And I love Angel's paranoia here and his possible fear of the dark and claustrophobia. You get the feeling watching this scene, this fucking guy wants out of there. And that's when he's going to discover we get the reveals, because you have to have those body reveals in a slasher. Whether the bodies are falling down in front of you or you stumble upon them, you have to have a reveal of some of the people who died before you. And here is where he's going to get a reveal. So he turns on his cell phone light, and this is where we get the frozen effect when he pulls back the plastic. And then he realizes he's not in Kansas anymore, that he's in some really grave danger, as if the bloody plastic wasn't enough. And you're probably asking, well, why didn't they try to hide them better? You've seen the end of the film. You know that it doesn't matter. Julian doesn't care. So the bodies in here so far, one is of John. That's the guy that choked on the poison sandwich. And I'm very proud of that frost look. And the other could easily be Jerry. We don't know. Is it Angel's character? We don't know. But what we do know is this Angel wants out of here. And you're going to see what happens. I like this because it relies mostly on a sound effect. As the gloved hand grabs him, the hook goes into his back. He's up on a meat hook and you hear that. And I love it. The crackling, by the way, was me, and I was crunching on carrots into a microphone to make that sound. And then our sound designer just amplified it. But I put a bunch of raw carrots in my mouth and just bit down on them really hard to get that crunching sound of bone as the hook went into him. Now we're setting up for the finale. It's all starting to come to a close. These are our survivors, except for Adrian. So where is she? And they're all wondering just what's going on. Again, I love Charlie's photography for this film. And this scene here, we had to shoot twice. The original death of Felissa, I just wasn't happy with. And it was nothing to do with her. The effect didn't work. The scene called for in the script that she gets Drano, some type of plumbing cleaner, poured down her throat. And for those of you who know what that stuff is, it's caustic. It'll burn. And so we exaggerate it. She gets it poured down her throat and it burns through her throat and, bubbles and blood and the stuff is, reacting with her own body fluids and it's bubbling. And the first take of it, I love her sensitivity, by the way, here. She was so good at this. Like, you really think she's grieving for one of her own children. That's why Felissa is one of the best kept secrets in horror and in Hollywood. And here is where the stuff gets poured down, like I said. This is day 2. And we had to fight I forget, that was like some kind of a wheatgrass mixture to make it look like that. The smoke coming out of her mouth, the burning is CGI to show that it's burning. Right here, that was a fake neck prosthetic that was attached to her with these giant pumps that squeezed out blood and the fluid and the acid stuff, the plumbing stuff to come out. it worked good enough. I wasn't really 100% happy with that effect. And I told you I would be honest with you as we go through this. Not one of my favorite effects, but it worked. And Felissa's the one who really makes it work. In here, Nicole Sinaglia in the shower finds her brother's jersey. Her brother is pictured in the digital photograph in the opening of the film. That's his jersey. If you go back and look, that's the same jersey he was wearing. Someone knew that and threw it into the shower. It wasn't going to be a psycho shower scene. So the one thing, because of time, the hurricane killed us on time. And that was, we never got to film Ashley Sumner's death. And Ashley is here also to provide eye candy. She's a beautiful girl. She looks good in a swimsuit, underwear, whatever, just normally, even in her t-shirt and shorts. But she got cheated in this because we ran out of time and there was no time to shoot her killing. So when Montana comes out of the shower, she finds her already dead. The script called for her putting up a fight, that Sarah would put up a fight with the killer, and we would get a reveal of what would look like one of the killers. But it never happened, just simply because that hurricane day killed us and we had to get Eric on that hurricane day. So it's like, do you choose between your celebrity or a death scene? You already have a lot of death scenes. We'll just have to come back to it. So we rewrote it that Montana will come out of the shower and then she will find Ashley dead on the bed. So Ashley Sumner, if you're listening, I've apologized enough already for it, but I'm sorry we didn't kill you on screen. So everything's ratcheting up here. It's darkness has fallen. This is the last night at the camp. Alex Mandel, I don't give enough props to him as well either as Maddie. Alex does a really great job of showing frustration. He's the level-headed guy in this. He's the guy that really you want to root for. He's not here to sexually harass anybody. He's not the silly goofball. He's not even all that shady. His problem with his parents is that he didn't go into the military. His father pulled strings because his brother went in and his brother was a decorated officer and he didn't follow. So that's why he embarrassed his parents. So for Maddie, he's probably the most sympathetic of them all. Him and Sarah, I would say, Ashley Sumner's character. There's our 6 degrees full moon again. And I remember in test screenings for this, the audience knew right away. I had this lit very Friday the 13th because you know he's getting it, right? Like that's it. And the audience would go, oh no, because they like Vinny. And that's why I brought Davey back to star in for the special. That's why I love working with him. So he'll break open the trail cam here. And this is where he will meet his end. This practical effect is probably one of the best in the film. And I wanted him strangled with barbed wire as a reference to Crazy Ralph in Friday the 13th, Part 2. Because Ralph got it, I believe. He was Garrett. I don't know if it was barbed wire, but it was a wire. And I wanted barbed wire for this. So the barbed wire is actually a long rubber tube that was painted metallic. And it was given, they poked holes into it and inserted these small prongs that were also tiny hollow tubes. And what they did is then they pumped blood through the end. And when it came out, it would squirt through that big tube into those tiny little tubes. And then it would leak out. And then when it leaks out, it looks like it's cutting into the skin. Now, it's a 2-part effect because you need to show that barbed wire ripping his throat flesh. So the first part is the barbed wire comes around, pulls in. Then you'll notice I'll have a cut to his feet on the ground struggling in the dirt. Then when we cut back, blood is being pumped and it's already started the cutting into the flesh. But then you got to come back. So we cut back to the feet again. There you go. Here's where it is. And the blood, that's blood squirting through the tube. But then when we come back, you'll see his flesh is all ripped up because that's a 2-part. We had to stop shooting, put this appliance to get that effect right there where his flesh and his throat is all ripped up. I think the color of blood is perfect, the density of the blood, and it looks like barbed wire cutting into him. I think that might be my favorite practical effect next to the arrow through the eyeball effect. Really, really happy with that one. And it's here, we're looking at, this is the wrap up. So we have now another shower scene. And instead of a Norman Bates kind of come in with a big Michael Myers knife or Norman Bates mother knife, you'll see what we use on this one. This is, again, the TV-13 news van that we use so much. We would have been lost without this. It really lended a lot of production value and credibility. Again, my thanks to Connie and George Roberts and Kim Bell at TV13 up in the Poconos and Palmerton at Blue Ridge Cable. I have to give those plugs when you're making independent films, folks. You got to give the plugs to the people that help you because you'd be lost without them. So it's here where we discover that things are really, really not right at home off the camp. So this is a satellite phone, and that means they're able to bypass the cell phone jammer and connect directly. And it's when they call home, okay, that they find out that there's something really, really wrong. Here is Brian Anthony Wilson, who plays Maddie's father. Brian is in a lot of my films. He was in 6 Degrees of Hell as the sheriff, and then he was also in Zombie Killers. He was also in my film The Fields. Brian Anthony Wilson is one of the best character actors out there, and I just had to get him in this. There wasn't a role for him in this, but I wanted to get his voice in here, so he'll play Maddie's father. And then when Adrian makes the call, we now discover that this is not just a camp problem and a psycho killer running amok on camp, but we have a real problem here. And it's outside the camp, and it's a far bigger issue and conspiracy than we could have imagined. So in the background, all these shots are green screen, by the way. The screens were blue. I shouldn't say green screen. They were all blue screen, and they were matted in. So Adrian will now call home. Her mother will pick up, and then she will say, "I don't have a daughter." And that is a key thing in this film, because now we realize that it's not just Julian, it's not Novak, it's not Adrian, it's not just them, whoever's doing the killing, that the parents, they're involved too. And that's when she just got that message. Why would a parent say that when your own daughter calls home? I don't have a daughter. So the conspiracy is extremely wide, which I think is part of the appeal of Camp Dread, because a lot of people have said to me, that ending, man, that's fantastic. Now here is the attack on Montana, another practical effect where I wanted the machete to come in and shave off the front of her thigh. I don't think we've ever seen an effect like that. So the machete comes through, comes down, cuts that shower curtain, but also shaves off a hunk of meat from her shin bone, not her thigh, her shin bone. And it comes down and peels it like a carrot. That's how it was written in the script, that the flesh comes off like the skin off a carrot. So now we find here that yes, Novak, played by Joe Raffa, is a killer. But is he the only killer? That's the question. Who is really doing all this killing? This was a very complex effect. We find here that Sarah's dead. Again, sorry, Ashley, I didn't mean to kill you off screen. So Joe got her, and then he comes in. He starts hacking her. I wanted a brutal scene where he's hacking the skin off her back with the machete. She rolls over, and he brings the machete up, and finally penetrates her. That's the whole sexual illusion. Am I hard enough for you now, is what he asks. That's a good line. I don't know. It's a good slasher line, don't you think? So that was great. That practical effect work. Montana's body, her upper body, was in a hole through the bed. We were allowed to destroy the mattress of one of the beds and the box spring underneath to put her through. So she's topless through the upper half of her body. And then we put in a prosthetic body that Joe hacks and then stabs and combine that together. That's a very Friday the 13th Tom Savini style effect, just so you know. So now we have these two coming in. Adrian and Maddie come in. They discover the carnage that's in here. And we have the big finale. I love that. That's a tip out of Halloween 2, by the way, slipping on the blood. Lance Guest tripped on the blood, I believe it was, in Halloween 2 and fell on the floor. So we have that. Joe is on the attack. His Novak gets his fingers whacked by the machete. And it's Maddie who is coming to the fore, right? He's the savior. And we think that Adrian is just this poor final girl, right? She's this mousy, possibly psychotic and very nervous and wound tight girl. And obviously not playing with a full deck, but she's acting very helpless. But we're going to find that none of that is true. We shot this scene. This was the last night scene of the film. And this is roughly about 2:30 in the morning, the night we were shooting this. That's how pressed for time we were. And tensions were really high on set. We were all frazzled with each other. We just needed to get this done. And we needed to it's hard to light at night. That's the problem. So they find Vinny dead on trail cam because, again, Julian had said there are how many dozens of cameras all over the camp. So we're honoring that, showing you that. And, of course, you have to have your obligatory find the bodies as you try to flee kind of thing. But I love that Matty has stepped up as the protector. Notice his body cam is gone right now. Both body cams are gone. It's just on them. And Adrian is definitely playing the femme, fatale kind of thing, doing extremely well. And her scream is her own scream. You will see her when he opens this up. That is Nicole's scream. And she did it about 3 times. And I think she went hoarse, but that's really her screaming. That wasn't dubbed. Again, we have that, I'm going to comfort you. Everything's going to be okay. Shh, it's all right. We're going to get the cops. It'll all be fine. We'll get the sheriff out here. That's the Danielle Harris character. We'll get everybody out. And so again, being the protector, thinking that she is just the helpless final girl, the mousy final girl. And from watching this film, that is not the case. We had to move quickly in shooting these final scenes. And the big effect scenes are coming up. So I want to talk about that a little bit as we get going, because the action now, you've seen the film. He's going to protect her. He's going to wash off the machete. They're going to try to get down to the boathouse. They're going to try to make, for their escape, they're going to wait till daytime to make their escape. Now, number one, the ending on the beach was supposed to take place at night. But our budget and our time did not allow for the incredible lighting it would have taken to light all of the beach for that big final ending. So I had to rewrite the scene for daytime, which is a real test for me as a first-time director, because night is better, and night also hides imperfections on effects. I didn't have that option. I had to go forward shooting in the day, as you will see. So here comes the dawn coming up in a time lapse. The final effects called for Matty to be beheaded on the beach by Adrian, and also for bullets to start flying. I was let down by one of the pyrotechnics guys who totally let me down. I'm not going to get into all of it. It doesn't matter anymore at this point, except that they let me down. And when you see Joe Raffa, I'll point it out when the time comes up because it goes quickly, so that's why I'm telling you this story now. When you see Joe Raffa fire the gun at the boathouse window, that's me below the frame with a straw in my mouth, a bendy straw filled with sawdust and rolled up tissues to create the look of wood splintering when the bullet hit, because we had no fucking squibs, because I was let down by my pyrotechnics guy. And to this day is the only person I've ever fired off my set. Just told him, pack up and leave. You totally did not come through. So I had to improv on that. And that comes from being a boy and making movies as a kid and trying to figure things out. So those of you who are filmmakers right now, there's always a way. It may not be the way you want, and it may not be the most expensive or even sometimes the most convincing way, but there's always a way. So I leaned on my low budget love growing up and watching Roger Corman movies and all of those kind of films to figure out a way to make a bullet strike. We could have done CGI, but I didn't have all that money. Believe it or not, people think, well, it's only a bullet strike. How long does that take? It's not about the time in CGI. It's about the frames. That's the problem. You're going to see here, that's the first effect. Then Adrian goes to chop off Matty's head. The effect that was brought out, they did a replica of Alex Mandel, who plays Matty, and they put it on the beach. And the effect looked horrible. And so bad, as a matter of fact, that Eric Roberts walked up behind me and whispered in my ear, "You're getting hosed, boss." So what do you do as a director? I mean, do you give up? Do you throw up your hands? Do you get pissed off? I mean, if I'm not in control, what does that tell the rest of the crew? You got to fix it. So I looked at the effect. Hang on, here comes the bullet shot. Bam, there it is. That stuff you saw down in the corner, it goes so fast, that's me. So with this effect coming up, I told my DP, I said, listen, I know where this thing bleeds. The apparatus is in the neck. I want you to go tight on the neck for the machete strikes. Nothing else. And this works. Watch. We see the real Maddie comes down, boom, on the head. This looks good, right? Not bad. The blood is gushing. When you see the full body of Maddie twitching in the sand coming up here, that's really Alex's real body. We put his head in a hole. We dug a hole and shot it through a kind of forced perspective kind of thing to make it look like, with all that blood all over, that he was decapitated. Now here's the big finale. She will take Maddie's severed head, and I had to be real careful about this because, again, I wasn't 100% thrilled with the severed head. So I touched it up myself with some makeup effects and styling, and I had the hairstylist and the assistant makeup artist really work hard on this to bloody it up and make it look good. So we cut off his head. She will use it as the watermelon, and she will do it just like out of The Biggest Loser. And here she goes. So fuck you, Novak. Wham. And I wanted that shot of like stars, like when you get hit in the eyes, right in the head, you see everything goes black and you see that flash from being impacted. So it split his skull open and he bleeds out on the beach. Again, not the effect that was called for in the script, but it was good enough and it works. Also, as Julian even says here, it's a death that, as far as I know in a movie, no one's ever been killed by a slingshotted severed head. So I feel pretty good about that. Here is where I say that Adrian is somebody else. Who is this girl? Her hair is down. She's very smart. She's calm. She's not freaky. She knew. She had a plan the whole time. And this ending here, because we had no squibs, like I said, I had to fire my squib guy, the shot has to happen off camera. He was supposed to shoot her and we see her chest explode, her belly explode, but instead it had to happen off camera and we had to shoot it this way. Again, oh, look, there's our swan in the background. Cue the swan. This is the scene right here that one distributor wanted cut. They wanted everything cut out of this part and go right to the ending with Eric and Danielle Harris. I kept this because it's a mournful shot. These were really, almost all of them, except for Novak and arguably Adrian, they weren't bad kids. And they are victims. And by removing this scene at the end, you just made it a slasher film where all these kids are here to do is drink and fuck and get naked and be assholes. Yes, some of them are assholes, but I like to think that I created some pretty shaded characters for this and made them real victims. And listen to their responses at the end. They're acting like real people and they're sad. They know the predicament of their own lives. And they know that the bottom line is they're fucked up because of their parents. And that leads us into the revealing ending. So the sheriff comes out. My uncle, by the way, helped us with this. Easton Police loaned us their police cars, their legit police cars for this. So we're very grateful to them. Here's Danielle pulling the bodies out of the water. So obviously the sheriff was in on this. This was shot on my neighbor's property. This is not the camp pond. My neighbors, friends of mine, were very, very nice people, had, I think, about 30 acres and allowed us to shoot on here. That's Nomi Gray in a drown mask, which I thought was quite effective. I thought that worked. But here's the big reveal. And the reveal, of course, now you know because you've seen the film, is that the parents all paid to have their kids killed. Julian obliges by killing them off in real life for the most realistic, found footage type of horror movie yet that will resurrect his entire career. And the sheriff is in on it. She gets a cut. She even killed her own brother to keep the secret quiet. But as I said at the start of this commentary, not Friday the 13th, not The Burning, not Sleepaway Camp. The number one influence on me for this film was Tom Holland's script for Psycho 2. And you're going to see this coming up right now. I have these two positioned. I'm directing them in a way that Eric looks like a predator standing over her. and they have to bury the bodies. But Eric explains here about the money. She'll get her cut. They were bad eggs. It's all justified. But if you notice in the back, there's a shovel. And she gets the Mrs. Spool treatment at the end of Psycho 2, which I wanted. Whack! And she's down. You really should have watched more horror movies. That's what I love. I love that ending line. And that's the tragedy. These kids, and even her, Danielle, are all disposable. That's the tragedy of it all. I wanted to evoke a Holocaust kind of feel, that these bodies are just thrown in garbage bags and they will be buried. They will be dumped and buried. And that is the tragedy of Camp Dread. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. I dedicated this, by the way, you can see here, those people are my former English and creative writing teachers, whom I can't say enough about, and I am totally indebted to what they did for me and helping me hone my craft. Thank you for listening. I will be having a commentary for The Fields, 6 Degrees, Zombie Killers, Garlic and Gunpowder, and even my upcoming Where the Scary Things Are. So thanks for listening. Please subscribe, and I hope you'll get others to subscribe. Thank you.